Hi everybody, it's Dante here. Today I'm going to talk about the energy of the upcoming solar eclipse that's taking place tomorrow, October 14th. This is going to be a powerful eclipse, and actually the energy of this eclipse is already coming through. I'm pretty sure I'm feeling it, but then again I'm also kind of tired from traveling, so I think it's a mixture of those things. Other people have said they're feeling it, and we're seeing a lot of these energies already play out in the conflict in Palestine and Israel. And while this eclipse isn't visible there, the lunar eclipse in 2 weeks is, and a lot of these energies will come in way before they actually play out with the eclipse, and they will follow through for some time after. Now let's hope that peace also comes through. And I'm going to talk about this eclipse in the Western tropical zodiac and in the Vedic sidereal zodiac, starting with the Western chart. And I'll pull the chart up on the screen so that you can just see it in that way and enjoy this video. And I will say, as always, that this is going to play out depending on where these planets fall in your own chart. And this is happening in the Western tropical Libra and the sidereal Virgo. If you have planets in those signs, this is going to affect you more, as well as the sign of Aries, and while we're at it, Cancer and Capricorn, who are the cardinal axis from that sign of Libra. And of course in sidereal you would switch that to the mutable energies, called the dual energies from the Vedic perspective, of Virgo, Pisces, Gemini, and Sagittarius. Anyway, let's dive in. And if you're interested in how this plays out in your own chart and in your own life, I'm available for sessions. Check out DanteStarshine.com and look at the astrology pages for more information on that. Alright, so we can see that we're having this eclipse playing out in the sign of Libra. And we'll see that up here. Libra. We have the sun, moon, obviously, and Mercury involved. And on the other side, where with the North Node, there is Eris and Chiron. There's also the asteroid Pallas Athene that is with Mercury. So Mercury is creating that sort of mental energy, and Eris is the goddess of discord and the goddess of disruption, who is fighting against injustice and disrupting what is unjust. Eris can create a lot of chaos in the field. Chiron is about wounds and woundedness. So right now there's an energy in the collective field on a personal and a collective level of coming up against our woundedness and sort of healing from that by rebelling against those who have been our oppressors. And Mercury is involved there, and Mercury adds that sort of mental thoughtfulness to it. And it's with Pallas Athene, who is the asteroid connected to strategy and intelligence, and this is war strategy because this is the goddess of battle. And so it makes perfect sense that there's massive conflicts taking place at this time. Not only that, but there's the energy of Pluto creating a square to this sun, and there's the energy of Uranus making an in conjunction to the sun. So Pluto is about power and control, and so there's an energy of seeking control, and there's an energy of Uranus that is another energy of disruption and revolution and evolution. And this is all causing this energy to impact the sun, who is in the sign of Libra. Libra is connected with peace, values, and justice. It's the scales, the balance between energies, and it seeks for finding that equilibrium. And how do we do that? It's with our values and with our decision-making processes. So on a collective level, it's easy to connect this with the war in Palestine and Israel, and there is seeking for justice. There is seeking for a rebellion against the injustice and oppression, and there's a seeking for control, the Pluto. On a personal level, we might be feeling this as coming to make clear decisions and having a lot of pain from the past connected with that Chiron and Eris that is causing us to reevaluate situations in our lives and make different decisions. Palestine involvement might make this a very strategical sort of decision, and with both of those very thoughtful planets so close to this eclipse, it's a time of really thinking things over before acting, and thinking things over before speaking, and taking the time to make sure your own heart is balanced. As Libra is the sign connected with Venus, Venus is connected very much with the heart. And it is the heart that knows justice and knows our values and knows balance. And the scales, when we connect it back to Egyptian mythology, is the journey into the underworld, where the heart is weighed against the scale, or weighed against the feather on the scales. And how light can our heart be? How open and free can our heart be? This is something that will be coming up with this eclipse and asking us to really be clear. Do we know our values, and are we bringing them into these situations before us in a clear way? And Pluto is again bringing in that energy of transformation and perhaps a seeking of power. It's often an invitation for us to reclaim our power. So that, and the potential for a surprise or a shock, which always can come with an eclipse and does come with a Uranus in conjunction, is making this a time when there might be a sudden reveal or a change or a shift that catches us off guard. The next thing that we want to look at is the Lord of the eclipse by the sign, which is Venus. And Venus is in Virgo. That is the sign of fall of Venus. So every planet has its detriment and its debilitation or fall, as well as its signs of exaltation. So here, when Venus is in its sign of fall, it can create a heaviness. It can create a sort of encumbered feeling, a lack of energy or a lack of insight. Fallen planets are often sleeping and they don't see things very clearly in that slumber. And Venus here is in its fallen state, kind of adding an extra level of heaviness to this eclipse. As well, Venus is with the Black Moon Lilith, and with Juno, the wife of Zeus, who represents commitment. Black Moon Lilith represents the wild and uncontrolled, rebellious feminine. And so Venus is connected with love and relationships. And on one hand, Venus has this Juno aspect that's asking us to commit more. And on the other hand, Venus has this Black Moon Lilith aspect that is seeking total freedom. And so this is kind of an interesting dynamic that can be playing out in a lot of ways, where we're evaluating in our relationships our need for commitment and then our need for freedom that might be simultaneously surfacing at the same time. How do we find that balance? Venus is also opposed to the planet Saturn, and Saturn is a planet of commitment and seriousness. It's a planet of suffering and the heavier energies that we can endure. Saturn teaches us discipline by showing us our suffering. And Saturn can create a stinginess as well in aspect to Venus, because Venus is connected with our money and our values and our possessions. And Saturn creates a limitation or a restriction. So at this time there can be a sense of not wanting to fully release, or a sense of some sort of a heaviness that our finances might be burdensome, especially because Venus is in that sign of its fall. And this can be challenging as well to the energy of the eclipse itself, because it is in Venus's sign of Libra. So Venus has a lot going on, and this is definitely a time of some relationship shakeups and the uncertainty that comes with the eclipse in general and the Uranus aspect to the eclipse. You could say that we didn't mention... Oh, no, that's not... Cancel that. Just to note as well that the ascendant of this, in this chart, is not fixed. This is the ascendant based on Mexico City, where I'm presently at. The ascendant of the eclipse is going to be different depending on where you personally are in the world. So I think we'll end the Western chart there, and we'll open the Vedic chart. Alright, so we have here the Vedic chart, and we have the Sun, Moon, and Mercury in the sign of Virgo. And in Vedic astrology, we also have the lunar mansions, the nakshatras, the 27 signs that we use mostly for the moon, though they are important for events like eclipses as well. And we have this one here in the sign called Chitra Nakshatra. And Chitra Nakshatra is connected with Vishvakarma, the deity, who is the architect of the gods, and the architect builds the world of the gods. But the architect is also connected in mythologies where they build the weapons for the gods, all of the weapons for the gods. So this is very poignant when we are seeing that the war is now taking place, and there's also other signs pointing to the war. So eclipses are always caused by Rahu and Ketu, or the North and the South Node, and they are in the sign right next to the Sun and Moon. But then all of those other planets will be involved in the eclipse as well, because the eclipse is the Sun, Moon, and Rahu, Ketu that we're having to consider. And so Ketu is with the planet Mars, and Rahu and Ketu are considered two sides of the same sort of entity, who was a asura, or being without light, often translated as a demon, who was beheaded as it was drinking the nectar of immortality. Therefore it was immortalized. It snuck in line to get this nectar and was caught, and then thrown in the sky to forever chase the sun and moon. Rahu is representing this never-ending desire that carves our destiny, but can bring us into the realm. Rahu brings us into the realm of incarnation. Ketu takes us out of the realm of incarnation, connected with spirituality, but also detachment, loss, dissociation, among other things. So Ketu can create a disassociation with whatever planet is connected with, or can bring spiritual or abstract qualities to that. Though with Mars, Ketu is known to bring a headless anger, because Ketu is the beheaded corpse that has no body. Ketu brings a headlessness. Mars is anger and aggression. And so that's definitely a quality of war, where suddenly we're attacking people without any consideration. And also there is a combination within Jupiter and Rahu when they're conjunct that brings a sense of immorality, a sense of reduced morals, and that is known to be common in the chart of soldiers. And common at times of war as well as again the moon is in the sign of the god who created all of the weapons for the other gods. So there is a lot of that energy that's reflected in this chart that we're seeing playing out in the world. And what else is taking place? So the lord of that sign of Virgo, where these things are taking place, is Mercury. Mercury is a crafty fellow. Mercury is a quick thinker. Mercury is adaptable and sees multiple sides of the perspective. And so also the solution is present within these energies. And Mercury is allowing us to see contradictory viewpoints at the same time. So in the sense, Mercury can be connected with diplomacy. Venus is also connected with diplomacy. Venus isn't involved, but Mercury has that sort of debating quality and can bring us to open new perspectives and see both sides of the coin and see through the duality. And that's what's really necessary when there are conflicts, is that we understand that both sides have a point and both sides have an issue. Both sides have a bone to pick, so to speak. So we need to consider that, whether we're looking at global conflicts or personal conflicts, is how can we recognize and validate what other people are experiencing so that we can really negotiate and find peace with them. These are the big questions people have to ask. Now, if we take this on a more personal level, when we think of Chitra Nakshatra, it's also symbolized by sort of like an open window frame or a blank canvas. And this is giving this representation of this nakshatra to craft our lives in our own way, to build our own reality for ourselves, to architect our own experience. And so while we can look at, oh, well, all of this craziness is happening in the world, and a lot of people in the Western world and all over the world are often in a state of defeatedness, that it's not possible, that things are already too far gone. And it's true that our world is in a pretty deep and dire situation in some ways. It's also true that our planet is on a path to potentially ascending and waking up, though part of that waking up is realizing and recognizing that we're creating our own experience. We are creating our own experience of our reality. And we may not be entirely creating our own reality, but we're creating our own experience of it. That's the first step. That's where a lot of people mix up that notorious and common quote, beloved and despised by the increasingly polarized audiences out there. Though this nakshatra and this sign is so much connected with creating our own experience, and we are creating our own take on these events in our world. We are, most importantly, creating our own lives. When we see everything that's happening out there, what do we want to do to protect ourselves? What do we want to do to better our own lives? What do we want to do to bring about personal healing and growth for our own personal experiences? And Rahu and Ketu are in these nakshatras here that are, Rahu's in Ashvini nakshatra. The next eclipse will be taking place there, with Rahu there. And that it will be a more Rahu nature eclipse. And Ashvini is connected with healing and quickness. And so there's a potential with that eclipse to bring in a great wave of healing. And at this time, we're seeing instead turbulence. How do we move from the turbulence into healing? And when Rahu changes signs, it moves into Revati Nakshatra, which is connected with spirituality and endings. So it's like we are ending a big karmic cycle through that next wave as we move. Rahu and Ketu change signs in November or the end of October, and they move through that, Rahu moves through that Revati Nakshatra for the next months. So into the new year, essentially. 2 months into the new year, I would say. Estimating the math in this moment. So what are we ending and what are we beginning? Because no ending is just an ending. It's always a beginning, and no beginning is just a beginning. It's also an ending. And we can experience at these times, with all of these wild energies, a chance to start something new, a chance to look out at the world and understand within these limitations, what do we want to build for ourselves within that, on that blank canvas. So I hope this helps you and illuminate some of these energies for you. And if you are curious about diving deeper with a personal reading, I'm available for those as well. Check out DanteStarshine.com, and when you hop in there, you can get on the email list that will notify you about when I'm doing the live stream channeling sessions with the Pleiadian Council and any other offers that I may be having and sharing. I appreciate you. I share my love with you, and thanks again for watching, and see you next time.